Welcome to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show, where we talk about business, leadership, and career development. Welcome, everybody. Organizational trainer and author Rita Sever is back on the show today. Rita is the author of Supervision Matters, and that's when we first met her. Supervision Matters is 100 bite-sized ideas to transform you and your team. She's also the author, which is her latest book, is Leading for Justice, Supervision, HR, and Culture. She's a regular Big Blend Radio guest expert, which we love, but I encourage you to go to her website, supervisionmatters.com. And today, we're talking about compassion in the workplace. Rita, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me back, Lisa.
Always fun because you always have this positive outlook on everything, but you do get real. We're going to talk about compassion, and even you go, compassion is truly kindness, right? Let's just start with the definition of compassion so people understand that, because you also have this balance of, yeah, we're being nice and everything, but actually it has to be real.
Right, exactly. There are limits to it in the workplace. So yes, starting with compassion in the workplace is really about recognizing people as people, not cogs in the machine, which is what the old style of work was based on a factory where, people were basically an extension of the machinery in the factory. And if they broke, you just take them out and put another one in, end of story. So compassion is about recognizing that people have their own lives and their own baggage and their own histories and their own complications, and making room for that when we can in the workplace, and supporting people through hard things when we can, and recognizing that wellness matters, and that the environment we create together matters, and how we treat each other matters. That's all part of compassion in the workplace.
And that's where we talked about last year on your last interview, and we got into the part of like, what about, because I know you work with a lot of nonprofits, and your book Leading for Justice really focuses on these justice oriented nonprofits, right?
Yes.
And people get, if you think about a social worker or a therapist or someone that is out in the field really caring for people, or they can get into a place where they need some mental health care. Sometimes they just need to have a few days off in a bubble bath, so
Exactly.
I want that. But
Yes.
so sometimes the workplace has to be kind of like what they're doing as an organization. They need to do that for their employees too, right?
Yes, recognizing the cost of the work, the challenges that come with it, and the emotional labor that comes with doing compassionate work externally. We need to refill our compassion tanks. When you said the bubble bath, I actually thought back to when I worked in an organization offering services to people with AIDS back at the height of the
Oh,
epidemic.
wow.
And we did several things to support staff, including having a mental health support group once a month, where a therapist would come in and meet with all staff just to be able to process together the cost of the work. And I was amazed and so supported because I was admin. I did not do frontline work, but I was included in that group because even people who look like they're not on the front lines, they're not directly impacted, but it's still there in the workforce. So that was a great model of an example of compassion in the workplace.
That's really huge, because you also need to understand the people you're interacting with,
Right.
right? So that way it's
Exactly.
like a group entity. And that's kind of what I'm starting to get to this point of, these interviews we do all the time with different, business leaders and compassionate care and all of this. It seems like an organization, whether it's a nonprofit or not, has to have a basic code of conduct, right? That sounds really old school, but the code of conduct actually should have compassion in there, and politeness, those kinds of things of
Yes.
not of good behavior.
Absolutely. I once did a workshop on building a culture of kindness. And one of the examples I used was actually from the Veterans Administration. I don't remember the name of the program, but I think it was something like civil that stood for something, CIVIL, but I don't remember that part. But one that stuck with me is they were as explicit as when you pass a colleague in the hall, when you are 10 feet away, make eye contact. And when you're 5 feet away, say hello.
Mm.
It was that specific. And the reason, and that was just one tiny example. But overall, when they measured the impact of this process of being civil with each other in the workplace, within 2 years, complaints against the agency went down and morale went up. It was quite dramatic, actually.
And so if morale goes up, then production goes up, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And
Production, no matter what
retention,
it is. Yeah.
yes. Yeah, people are more engaged and more effective in their work when they feel better about their work and
Yeah. I
when
mean,
they
that's
feel
the thing.
valued.
It sucks to have that feeling when you wake up in the morning and go, oh, I have to go to work. Like,
Yes.
that's why I work for ourselves here. Both Nancy and I work for ourselves because we know, like, oh, we love all our projects. We have a passion project basically that never ends, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so
That's
that's not good.
wonderful.
So, I mean, we probably need a boss to tell us go take the bubble bath, but that's
Right.
the thing. You want to have people really engaged and excited. So when we talk about how do we do it so that compassion comes in, you were talking about, this project that you were working on, the kindness and everything. How do we actually get it instilled into a workplace where it's not fake? I'm just going to go
Right.
right there, right?
Okay. Well, I think it has to happen on several different levels in order for it to be authentic. I think it has to happen systemically. I think it has to happen through culture. I think it has to happen in practices around supervision. I'm all about supervision, so I'm always going to connect the dots there. And it comes down to how people treat each other.
Mm,
So it really needs to go through all that. And to make it authentic, people have to understand why it matters. They have to feel the impact of it, and they have to understand why it makes a difference to their colleagues and why it makes a difference to their bottom line. As you said, the bottom line may be a mission in the organizations I work with, may be profit, it may be how many widgets we can build, whatever the bottom line is, how is this culture that includes compassion going to help us be successful?
mm. Now it's going to change also according to the type of organization, right?
Well, it's going to change a little bit in what it looks like, but I think there are some commonalities, again, that you're going to build practice of civility, respect, um, practices around consistency and supervision
Hmm.
and support. What does support look like? And the systemic practices are very similar no matter what the organization in terms of, what a benefit package looks like, how much we pay people. It may not
Mm.
be the same, but the same considerations. We're going to look at that. What can we afford to pay people and how does that impact them?
Oh, that's a good point. And like, yeah, don't hire someone and not, yeah, that's exactly it. It goes from the actual pay, because that's a true hard bone reality for folks is, am I getting paid
Mhm.
what I deserved? And if this organization can't afford it, you're going to have a very unrestful, like restless person. Let's put it that way. You're going to have a unhappy worker, and that can become very negative later.
Absolutely. And it's a tricky thing because, again, since I have worked with many nonprofits, they can't always pay as much as
Mm,
they would like to. So in those cases, it's what benefits can they give that can supplement the actual
Okay.
wage? And is it fair? I think that's the bottom line for people.
Mm.
That if I'm not getting as much as I would like, do I trust that we're all in the same boat?
Ooh, yeah,
Because
because
if I feel like, well, I'm not getting what I'm worth, and they're not worth nearly as much as they're getting paid, that's when you're going to have the disgruntled employees.
oh yeah, I have a friend who's in the nonprofit world, and she left because her superior, I hate to use that word, was basically stealing her work
Ah, yeah,
and then putting her name on it, got all the money. And I mean, she was doing okay, but she's like, well, there's nowhere to go other than this person's job, and I'm already doing it, so I'm bored,
right.
and I'm not getting paid, and
And it was
there's
unfair.
nowhere for me to go. There's
And it was
nowhere.
unfair. Yeah,
That's unfair.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. So, and then she's moved on, and don't mess with my buddy.
Yes, even in that situation, you could still bring compassion to that situation if somebody had not the part of her boss stealing her work, but if it's not uncommon in a small
Mhm.
organization to get to a level where there isn't any place for you to go.
Right.
So in that case, compassion might look like having a conversation with someone and acknowledging that and
Mhm.
saying, I think you've tapped out here. We love having you here. We want you to stay. But if you want to go, how can we support you? What do
Yeah.
you need to learn? How can we open doors for you?
Well,
They
that's
can leave
huge.
feeling good about themselves and
Well,
the organization.
and that, yeah, because you don't want negative stuff on your organization, especially a nonprofit. And when someone moves on, half of the time they're staying in the same kind of industry, right? The
Right,
same kind of, care or whatever they're doing, focus, same genre. And so it's gonna, like, I know my friend, she's in the same industry, and she has
right.
her friends and everybody that they were all knocking on her door, trust me. And
Mhm,
so she didn't do anything negative, but now she is able to work with her old
mhm.
organization and make it all work for what she's doing now. And I think that's also very important. It's like, don't burn bridges, like you're saying. It has to stay positive, because if you're a nonprofit, it's about everyone working together, because who knows, we're going to be working together again. Likely,
Absolutely.
very
And that
likely.
goes way beyond nonprofits. Just geographically, people usually stay in the same area, even if they do change industries. So it's going to come back. You're working with the same people in one way or another.
Well, the other part I want to talk about is nonprofits have just like, let's really focus on this, on nonprofits. I've just done some recent interviews, and they're nonprofit centric or activism centric, right? And here's the thing, there are some very big nonprofits in our country, national big nonprofits. And people go, oh, we don't want, how much, and nonprofits have had to step up their game on um, how well are they doing in regards to, are donors giving to the admin or not, right? So now, this is a big deal. Admin are important in a nonprofit. Otherwise, how do things run? And it was funny because the interview I was just doing was about admin, and it was about political rights for wildlife conservation and things like that. And I was thinking about you, and I'm like, yeah. So, you know, you can't, if you're going to do political stuff, you're going to have a bunch of admin people. That's what you're paying for if you're donating to this cause. Now, on the flip side of that, I know some very big nonprofits, and you have these CEOs that are making tons of money. Like, you might as well run Google kind of thing, almost. You know, do you know what I
Those are
mean?
pretty rare, but they do happen.
You know what I mean? Those big ones.
Yes.
Okay, it's not as big as Google. Let me bring it down. I don't know, whatever it is, but you know what I mean. Where
Yeah,
it's
there are a
really,
few very big nonprofits where the leaders make it, compared to the regular nonprofit staff, it looks
it's
exorbitant.
extraordinary. And so it's very hard for the people on the outside to go like, what? And and in some ways I think they do deserve it if they're good in what they're doing, because if it's that big of a nonprofit, you're gonna, so
Absolutely.
there's that point. But for the employees, nonprofit numbers are open for the public. So compassion needs to be there because everything's transparent in a nonprofit. If you're
Yeah,
politically communicative kind of thing in a nonprofit that you work in isn't transparent, but the numbers are transparent, don't you think they'll collide at some point? I was just thinking about that
absolutely.
today.
Absolutely. Let's see. I want to respond to several things you said, and
Sorry, 10. I've
no,
just gone through a
there's
bunch
a
of
lot to
interviews
talk
today.
about.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to start by just saying, the thing about admin is invisible. I think of admin as the skeleton of an organization. You don't see it, but it can't function without it. And so I think it's
Exactly.
important to recognize that there is something very fundamental about we need admin,
Oh, it's the
you know,
backbone. It's the backbone.
absolutely. In terms of the transparency, yes, if organizations, especially nonprofits, are not walking their talk in terms of practices and pay and values and benefits and how they treat each other, then things are going to hit the fan, as they say, because it's going to come out and it's going to be messy. So
Mm,
it's vital that people, maybe they don't have, they certainly don't have to know what everybody makes, but they have to know it's fair. That's again,
mhm.
we're back to the fairness. I don't have to know what my colleagues make, but I need to trust that you figured it out in a way that was fair to both of us. So
That's
that's
part of
what
that
the
compassion. And
transparency
that's, see,
needs to be. How did you figure it out? That's what I want to know, not what the answer was.
oh, so so we're really still focusing on that compassion and kindness, care, really thoughtful. It's about being thoughtful.
It's about being thoughtful, recognizing the humanity of ourselves and each other and our work together, and being kind. I think I talked about this way back when you talked to me about supervision matters, the difference between being kind and nice.
Oh,
Nice focuses on how the person will feel when the other person leaves the interaction or the conversation. Kind focuses on, am I doing this in the best and most compassionate manner while still being clear about what's needed or boundary or whatever we're talking about? So that's how you focus on kindness. How am I going to roll this out? Not not just how are people going to feel, because if you focus only on how people are going to feel, you don't have the hard conversations,
mm,
and you end up not treating people fairly because you're focusing on the squeaky wheel, if you will.
ah. I think people will do the right thing if they're comfortable, but it's not about being comfortable, and feeling good in your job is not about letting go and not doing well. Like, oh, they'll let me do whatever.
Right.
That's you talk about that too. You have
Yes.
compassion, kindness, and being nice, but there's a line drawn too that you don't get to. And I think that goes with human life anyway. Just because you're kind doesn't mean you get to walk over me.
Exactly. And I think that's especially important in this topic, compassion in the workplace. It doesn't mean any given person gets everything they want or unlimited time off. Somebody can't take a year off, no matter what they're going through, no matter how horrible it is, with pay, because that's not fair to everybody else.
Mm,
So helping them get benefits, having good time off benefits. But bottom line, if you're there working, you have to be working. And if you can't work for whatever is going on in your life, then we need to find a way to get you time off.
mm,
So yes, it becomes a disincentive if people, feel like, well, if you're having a hard time or you act out, then you get whatever you want, and here I am plugging away every day and I get nothing. Then people again feel like it's not fair.
Ah, so compassionate is about also fairness, justice. Ha.
Absolutely, yeah. There has to be, that's without justice, you don't have trust. And without
Mm.
trust, then the compassion becomes insincere
Oh,
again.
I have to look this up for you and tell you. I know that this is airing on a different day, but today's quote of the day on our Big Blend community is Pascal. I'm probably not even pronouncing his name right. Justice and power must be brought together so that whatever is just may be powerful, and whatever is powerful may be just.
Mm,
How about
that's
that?
wonderful. Yes,
Is that
that's
not one of the
wonderful.
best quotes about justice?
Yes, that's beautiful.
It is. It's like, and I think that's the same thing when we talk about compassion, when it has to have integrity. You
Hmm.
can't have compassion without integrity.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. As you said, even in our personal lives, we can't be so compassionate that we get walked over or we give ourselves away. We have to take care of ourselves and
Hmm.
show compassion and act compassionately towards others.
Yeah. So let's give some examples here.
Okay.
Okay. I come to you. I'm going, Rita, I can't work. My mom's sick. Um, I really need to take care of her. It shouldn't be too long. Can I take some time off? Is Can Sally come in and help me on my workload and I can do some work from home? Now that's kind of balanced, right?
Okay. So the first thing is to lead with compassion and empathy. So, then I'd say something like, Lisa, I'm so sorry to hear you going through that. That sounds really hard. And I will do my best to support you while making sure the work gets done. So that's the first step.
Oh, see, that was already strong. You're already
Yeah,
going, the work's still going to get done. We need to get the work done. I
right.
care about you, but
Yeah.
okay.
And the
Ooh.
second step is saying, let's look at how we can see if we can get you some time off. Let's talk to HR. You might be entitled to family leave. Maybe you have sick time. Let's see what we can get you for time off. Let's look at
Mhm.
that first. And
Yep.
then after we have an answer to that, then we can look at what might work in terms of working from home or job sharing. So I can't make any promises now because I don't know what it's gonna look like, or you don't know what your
Oh, so you get
situation's gonna
everybody
look
some
like.
breathing time. Very
So
good.
let's take us,
Oh,
let's follow our paths. I'll talk to HR, you look up your benefits from your perspective, and then we'll meet again next week and see where we go from here. And whatever we can do, we will do our best, again, making sure the work gets done, since that is why we're all here.
ooh. And then you smile. This is
Yeah,
perfect. But it is true. It is about caring and seeing what you can do and making a situation as best you can. There's so many people I know that do work in nonprofits who have gone through some things, especially during COVID and things, and um, who have said, thank goodness that my company understands. I've heard that term I don't know how many times of like a death has happened or something has happened where they just really needed a timeout. And that's
right,
why we wanted to talk about this today. It was compassionate care in a workplace, not like, end of life care, but
right,
compassionate care, compassion. Um, is that some people will burn out in a nonprofit from doing so much, and once in a while, someone will go on a sabbatical. I'm like, how the hell do you get a sabbatical? I want one.
right,
How do you get that? But the company goes, oh, or the organization, when we see exactly what you've done, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for this or whatever. They saw the value and have let people go away for 6 months at a time.
right. And again, the background of that is there has to be a policy that's fair again, and
Okay. Yep.
available to everyone. So like most of them are like after 6 or 7 years, you get 2 months off paid, and you can add another 2 months if you want it, something like that. But it is available to everyone. It's not on an individual basis that, okay, Lisa, you can get one, but no, Nancy, I don't think you've worked hard enough. You don't get one. It's
Oh,
fair, consistent, and generous. It is very generous to be able to have a sabbatical. And you get that back in, good work and retention and engagement and productivity.
wow.
Absolutely.
So this also means that people need to look into what their um opportunities are, their what their rights are actually, you know.
Yeah, both through their own personnel policies, what's available to them, and through state law. Many states have disability insurance or family leave acts that will
Mhm.
help support that need when you need to have time off. It's
Do you
not
think
going to be the same, but it's something.
it's something to also know when you go into a job, right? Is to understand
Absolutely.
how much does, if you have a compassionate environment, doesn't that help when people are like, oh, we love working here? If you get that positive vibe, doesn't that help attract people that you want in your
Absolutely.
organization?
Yes, it helps people stay longer, and it helps attract new staff. Absolutely. When there's a reputation that it's a compassionate workplace, we feel valued, we love
Mm.
working here. Absolutely. You're going to get better qualified candidates.
Wow. Wow. This is cool. Okay. So what else are we missing here? I'm going through, you have a good list of notes here. So let's get down to, because we were talking about some of, how it looks like and everything, but there are systems you talk about that actually need to be in place. So honestly, an organization, basically, you do need to have an HR that's on top of it and knows what everybody is, what they have available to them.
Yes, and some small organizations don't have HR, but
Right.
you still need to be intentional. What are our policies? How generous can we be with time off? How are we going to treat people when they hit personal troubles? And being intentional about that instead of each supervisor or manager does it off the cuff. That's when you end up having discrepancies and the system isn't being consistent. So thinking about it ahead of time and being both responsive to what comes up, but also from the start thinking about how can we best support people by building in a plan for sabbaticals, even if it's not going to happen for 5 more years. Let's build a plan.
Mm.
What benefits do our staff need? How can we best, it's not just money, how it's time off, it's gym memberships, helping support repayment of student loans. It can't be personalized. I can't say, oh,
Mm.
Lisa, I know you have 5 kids, so I'm going to pay you more than Joe, who only has
Oi.
2. No, that's not only not okay, it's not legal. So
Okay.
it can't be flying by the seat of your pants. It has to be intentional and thoughtful.
So no matter what the size of your organization is, even if it's a three-person thing, right? To, 100 person to 200 to maybe 1,000 people,
Mhm.
and it could be
Absolutely.
global, all of that. You need to know what, so someone getting set up. Ooh, we should talk about that someday. About setting up an organization, you need to have those protocols in place. So then when you go to hire someone, you're not, you know, all
Right.
it's not messy, because I don't
Right.
think you're going to attract the people you want, number one, if you're not with it. You
Exactly, exactly. And when I was an HR director, we developed some compassionate policies like, enabling people to donate sick leave, which is a great idea and very supportive. And it needs to be a policy. There needs to be clear guidelines and limits. And like we
Oh,
would put
wow.
a limit that you have to keep at least a week of your own time off because you can't give away everything. And
Right.
when can you do it? We set it up that People couldn't donate sick leave just when somebody ran out and they had another cold.
Okay.
It was more for extreme circumstances. There's different versions of it, but thinking again about those questions ahead of time so that we were ready, what
Mm,
made all the difference.
wow. And so you have to keep things fair across the board.
Right.
Fairness.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And the
Wow.
other thing I think is really important in this topic when we talk about compassion as work at work is to remember that it's about listening, being empathetic, supportive, and you can't fix it. There is a line
Oh,
there where it is not up to the workplace or the supervisor to fix whatever the situation is. You can
mm,
support and help, but don't fall into the trap of feeling like, well, I have to fix it. Like, I can't hold them accountable because they're going through a divorce right now. No, that's not fair to everybody else. They still have to be accountable to their work
yeah.
or take
Well,
time off.
yeah, I mean, there's some serious things that happen in life, like divorce, weather circumstances that can affect you coming to work. There's some real things in life, death, all of that. And I think, especially in California, California is putting one law into place after the other that's already set up. But if for the workplace to actually at least know how someone's feeling, it maybe is just, you know what, if you really need a day off today, go take one if you need it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I know that there's a bunch of employees that do more than overtime without the compensation. But at that point, you should at least say something to you. You need to acknowledge that. And maybe on nonprofit work, it's hard because
Mhm.
sometimes you're out in the field for days because that's what's needed, right?
Right. And this is
So
where, it gets
the
tricky because
gray
you have to
area,
balance the compassion and the generosity with the fairness and the law.
yeah,
But they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both.
yeah, it's about actually being on it as a supervisor, right? Being there and understanding, recognizing someone pulling all the stops and pulling them back when it's now unhealthy.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the other part.
And, yeah, if your job really requires this much time, then we need to look at changing
Yeah,
it because it's not sustainable.
yeah, because people go too far sometimes.
Uh,
It's and it can get into like a savior mode. I don't
mhm.
do you know what I mean? In
Exactly.
nonprofits, it's like I'm gonna
Yep.
fix the fixing thing. You brought that word up, and I was like, ooh, that's a hard thing because people want things to be good and they want to fix things. That's a huge, wonderful quality. But there's this line that gets stepped over at times, and sometimes
Right.
it's truly honest, and it just is. It's
Yes.
messy.
It is. It can get very messy, both on a personal level and systemic level, organizational level. Yeah, I have a section in my Leading for Justice book about the savior part and how historically that has been messy and how it can still be messy, both
Mm.
again on an individual level and if we're not careful organizationally.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, it's someone goes out, they wear their heart on their sleeve, they go for it. And it may be and sometimes it's just a one-off circumstance,
Mhm.
and just be aware of it, thank them, but you don't want it
Yes,
to go off to the point where harm is done, and then it's like accepted that this is how, you know what I mean? There's just the gray area is a gray area, but you are always about having a system so that when a situation comes up, that you know where to go. You're not taken by surprise too much, right?
yes, either there is a protocol, a plan, a policy in place, or you have guidelines that you know where to go for answers or for help.
Mm.
So that, you know how, like I did in the example with you, okay, let's follow this and do our research and come back and make a plan. But I'm not gonna make you promises now. I'm not gonna say, oh, Lisa, that's awful. We're gonna take care of you through this.
The height of emotion. You don't run on
Right.
the height of emotion.
Yeah, it has to be
Ooh,
balanced.
ooh, cool it down.
Yep. Yeah, while
Well,
still being compassionate with you as a person, but knowing that the next step is a different animal,
Yeah.
if you will.
I think people have done that at times to me in life. I'm just thinking about that. I think we've all been through that, right? And when you're going through something, you're emotional about it. No matter how
Absolutely.
how you can't it is what it is. That's life.
Yeah. And as you use the example of people saying, thank goodness my organization was so helpful and supportive and compassionate, I've also heard the horror stories of, I remember one quote where somebody said the worst part of cancer was dealing with HR. I was like, oh my God, that's
That's
horrible.
that's the worst. That's worse because you're already dealing with a medical system and they
Yeah.
suck.
And you're
I mean,
sick and you don't feel well, and that was the worst. That's terrible.
that's not cool.
No.
That's not cool.
So
No.
that's what we want to be, the opposite of that. We want that to be the easiest part of the journey. Even if it's not exactly what you were hoping for, it doesn't make it worse.
Wow. Yeah, because HR is like holding hands between management, ownership, and the employees and making everything work. They're the glue. They're the ones who need to go on a spa day.
Yeah.
Because it is, you're getting it from all sides, you're in the middle. And so there's something. So are there compassionate care plans for HR people? Like, actually, that's something to think about. Who
Yeah,
helps the HR people?
absolutely. Yeah, I have a whole chapter about that in my book about how hard HR is and how we have to support each other in HR. And hopefully, as you said, the managers and the owners are aware of how important HR and can offer that spa day occasionally to help
Or cake or
balance it.
something good, just
Right,
something. Yeah, I think there should be some kind of appreciation for work because it's not always about the money either.
right. No, it
you
goes,
know
money is a part of it again, especially if you feel it's
Everybody needs
not
it. Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
But more is how I feel. Am I being treated? Am I being valued as a person, not just for my skills?
Mm. Wow. What a good conversation, Rita. I love
Yeah,
this.
I love it. We always have great conversations,
I
Lisa.
know. Did
So
we
much.
stick on plan? No. I think we did. Who knows? It's a gray area, let's put it that way. But everyone, Rita Sever, go to her website, supervisionmatters.com. We love having her on the show. She comes on every few months. And her books, again, Supervision Matters and also Leading for Justice. And you can keep up with her on our site also at blendradioandtv.com and keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much, Rita. We can't wait for next time.
All right, take care.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio Success Express Show. This show is brought to you by Big Blend Magazines. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com and check out our magazines at blendradioandtv.com.